A Navy SEAL and his wounded German Shepherd found a Billionaire's SUV crushed in a blizzard. Blood inside, but her body gone. Her husband cried for cameras. Yet the second they turned off, Draven growled like he'd just met a wolf in human skin. A torn note in a frozen cabin warned, "Don't trust," before the rest was violently erased. Draven abandoned the ransom site and dragged Adrian to a secret cold room, where the Billionaire sat bound, frostbitten, still fighting to breathe. A sniper locked onto her heart, and Draven threw his body into the bullet, meant to end the truth forever. Hours later, her husband returned with a gun and confessed a partner far more lethal than himself, then disappeared into the night. And as the first snow fell, the SEAL understood. Some angels protect us on 4 legs. So tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more miracle-filled stories. The snowstorm had not yet revealed its cruelty. When Adrian Cross first felt the silence tightening around him, it wasn't the peaceful quiet of a winter night. It was the kind of silence that presses on a man's ribs, as if the world is holding its breath before something breaks. Adrian, a 45-year-old former Navy SEAL with shoulders built by years of hardship, guided the patrol SUV along the narrow mountain road. His blue-gray eyes, calm, steady, carved by storms both literal and emotional, scanned the darkness ahead. A faint silver streak cut through his dark hair. A thin scar traced the line of his jaw. He carried the look of a man who had survived what others would not have walked away from, and still carried the weight of it in quiet, deliberate breaths. Beside him lay Draven, a sable German Shepherd, 5 years old, strong frame, thick winter coat, amber eyes full of intelligence, a dog built for discipline and danger. But tonight, something inside him vibrated like a wire pulled too tight. Draven lifted his head, slowly, too slowly for it to be instinct. His muscles bunched, his ears pricked forward. A low vibration began in his chest. Adrian glanced down. "What is it, boy?" Draven did not blink, did not shift. He stared through the windshield, into the white tunnel of falling snow, as if something unseen was standing there, waiting. Then it happened. A growl. Deep warning, not of an animal startled, but of a creature sensing a wound in the world. Before Adrian could process it, Draven stood planting both front paws against the dashboard. "Draven, hey, easy." But the dog wasn't listening. His body trembled with urgency. His breath hitched, and then he barked. One sharp, explosive sound that cracked the stillness inside the SUV. Adrian braked hard. The tires hissed on ice. Within seconds, Draven lunged at the door, claws scraping metal, whining with a desperation Adrian had only heard once before. The night Draven refused to leave the side of his dying former handler, Mason. All right, hold on." The moment the lock clicked, Draven shoved the door open and vanished into the storm. Adrian cursed and jumped out. Cold punched him across the face. Snow hammered sideways, stinging skin, soaking into the seams of his uniform. But Draven's silhouette, dark, determined, cut through the swirling white ahead of him. "Draven, stop!" The dog did not stop. He raced toward the guardrail at the edge of the road. Adrian pushed through the storm, boots slipping on black ice, breath tearing through his lungs as he followed. Then he saw it. A section of the guardrail was twisted outward, metal bent like ribbon, scrape marks gouged into steel, snow still falling into fresh wounds on the road. A vehicle had gone through here, recently. Draven stood at the brake, barking down into the ravine. Adrian reached the rail, gripping it with gloved hands. Below, half buried, in snowdrifts, lay a luxury SUV. One headlight flickered weakly, like a dying heartbeat. Adrian exhaled. This just happened. He began the descent, sliding and stumbling through the deepening snow. Draven bounded ahead, never hesitating. The wrecked SUV looked like a crushed animal. Metal folded in, glass shattered, snow filling the empty spaces. Adrian yanked open the passenger door. Inside, a purse spilled open, makeup scattered, a compact mirror cracked in two, a silk scarf stained with drying blood. The airbag carried a dark smear, but no body, no footprints near the vehicle, no sign of someone waiting for rescue. Someone had been here, and someone had taken them away. Draven nosed the back seat, inhaling sharply. His tail lowered. His body went rigid. Then he released a sound Adrian would never forget. A trembling, grief-stricken moan. "Hey," Adrian whispered. "Easy." But Draven pawed at something under the torn fabric of the seat. A small glint caught Adrian's eye. He reached in. Fingers closed around a ring. Cold, gold, elegant. He brushed off the frost and read the inscription. Elena Hart. He whispered the name. The storm seemed to hold its breath. Draven's moan deepened into something like sorrow. And then Adrian saw it. Not inside the car. Outside. 2 parallel grooves in the snow, shallow but unmistakable, drag marks. Someone had been pulled away from the crash. Alive. Someone took her. Adrian murmured. Draven nudged the ring in Adrian's hand, then turned sharply toward the forest, toward the darkness swelling between the trees. The dog's posture shifted, no longer frantic, focused, driven. He had locked onto a trail. For a brief moment, as Adrian stared into the forest, something impossible brushed against his senses. A whisper, too faint to be sound, drifted through him like a plea carried by the storm. A woman's fear, cold, sharp, alive. He blinked, but Draven had felt it too. The dog looked back at Adrian with an urgency that bordered on spiritual. The kind of instinct animals show only when a soul is slipping away in the dark. Adrian felt his heartbeat thud once, painfully, as if answering that silent call. The storm thickened. Snow fell in heavy sheets. The world narrowed to white and shadow. Adrian pocketed the ring, closing his fist around the cold metal. Elena Hart, he whispered. Whoever she was still alive somewhere in these woods, and she needed someone strong enough to hear her without her ever saying a word. Lead the way, boy. Draven didn't wait. He plunged into the forest, each stride precise, driven by instinct older than reason. Adrian followed. Above them, the storm howled. Below them, the snow swallowed their footprints as fast as they made them. Somewhere far from the crash site, inside a warm, glass-walled office overlooking the city, a man with slick, dark hair and a chiseled jaw lifted a phone to his ear. His suit was immaculate. His expression, calm to the point of cruelty. A voice on the line finished the report. He smiled. "Yes," he said softly. "It's done. No witnesses." But he had underestimated the oldest witness of all, a dog who refused to ignore a cry for help, and a soldier who refused to abandon the living. If you believe God sends help in the darkest storms, then remember to like, comment, and subscribe, because this story is only beginning. The morning broke with a cold, metallic stillness, one that made the world look polished yet hollow, as if the storm from the night before had scraped away every trace of warmth. Adrian Cross stood outside the glass doors of the Regional Investigations Bureau, snow melting on the shoulders of his uniform, Draven sitting alert at his side. The German shepherd's breath fogged the air in short, controlled bursts, and his amber eyes stayed fixed on the building ahead. Whatever instinct had driven him mad the night before still simmered in his body like heat beneath ice. Inside, the lobby buzzed with frantic energy. Phones ringing, reporters clustering near barriers, officers brushing past each other with clipped urgency. Screens on the far wall streamed the same breaking headline on repeat. Alina Hart missing in storm. It was the first time Adrian saw her face clearly. A woman in her early 30s, striking in a way that was both elegant and human. Hazel eyes that seemed too soft for the corporate empire she inherited, warm olive skin, hair like dark silk falling over her shoulders. She looked like someone who smiled more with her eyes than her mouth. Someone who didn't deserve to vanish into a night like the one he had just walked out of. An officer guided Adrian to a briefing room. Draven followed, step steady, tail low. The moment the door opened, cameras flashed. Reporters lined the back wall. Lights lit the front. Microphones pointed at one man standing alone beneath the glare. Marcus Hart. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with a broad frame that filled out his tailored charcoal suit. His sandy blonde hair, cut short with precision, was styled perfectly despite the chaos. His jawline was strong, face freshly shaved, but exhaustion hung beneath his ice-blue eyes. Most striking of all were his tears. Wet, abundant, performing grief, with the conviction of someone aware that the world was watching. He clutched a framed picture of Elena to his chest. In it, she was smiling. Truly smiling. And Marcus pressed his lips to the glass as if he might collapse without the anchor of her image. My wife. His voice cracked. My Elena. Please bring her home. The room shifted with emotion. Cameras clicked. A few reporters muttered their sympathy. But Draven growled. Soft, almost inaudible, but unmistakable. Marcus didn't seem to hear it. He wiped the tears with a white handkerchief embroidered with his initials, MH, and leaned heavily on the podium as if his heart had been ripped out. Then a producer called, "Cut! We're clear!" And Marcus changed. The tears stopped instantly, evaporating like steam touched by frost. His shoulders squared. He sniffed once, sharply, then folded the handkerchief with mechanical precision. He didn't even bother pretending sadness as he checked his reflection in a nearby monitor, smoothing down a crease in his suit. His face reset into a controlled, emotionless mask. Draven's ears pricked. The dog huffed once, sharply, and sneezed. A behavior Adrian recognized as Draven's way of signaling deception. Not danger, not threat. A lie, a very human lie. Marcus finally noticed Adrian and approached, offering a hand. "Officer Cross, I'm told you found her car?" Adrian studied him. How his handshake was firm but not warm, how his gaze lingered only long enough to measure, not connect. "Yes, we believe she survived the crash." "That's good," Marcus said, but his tone was flat. Too flat. As long as whoever has her understands the value of what they're holding. Draven's growl deepened. Marcus frowned. "You should keep that animal under control." Adrian rested a calming hand on Draven's back. "He's usually very controlled. He reacts to inconsistencies." The air tightened, but another voice cut through the tension. Vivian Cole stepped into the room like a blade sliding from its sheath. She was in her mid-40s, tall, sharply elegant, with a slender frame and posture that commanded space without effort. Her black dress was fitted, minimalist, and her dark hair was tied in a polished knot. She had high cheekbones, smooth porcelain skin, and a pair of steel-gray eyes that missed nothing, not the cameras, not Adrian, not Draven bristling at her presence. Vivian's voice was cool as she addressed Adrian. "Did the kidnappers call yet?" Marcus lifted his brows. "Vivian, maybe we should..." I'm CFO of the Heart Foundation, she said, cutting him off, her tone dry. Her abduction is not just a personal tragedy, it's a financial threat. Our donors need reassurance. Our board needs clarity. No, is Elena safe? No, is she hurt? Just numbers, risk, optics. Marcus shot her a warning glare, but she didn't flinch. Draven studied her in eerie silence. Adrian felt the first coil of something strange inside him. A creeping intuition that both Marcus and Vivian were standing too close to the center of a storm they claimed to fear. A phone rang. A distorted voice filled the room through speakerphone. If you want her alive, prepare 50 million. Instructions will follow. No police, no trackers, no mistakes. Then silence. Vivian exhaled sharply. 50 million? Do they think we mint cash? Marcus rubbed his face. We'll pay it. We'll pay anything. But the shock wasn't the amount. It was something else entirely. The kidnapper knew Elena's exact schedule, her meetings, her route home, even the charity event she canceled 2 hours before leaving. Information only her inner circle possessed. Adrian watched Marcus, then Vivian. Neither looked surprised enough. Not truly. Suddenly, Draven stepped forward, silent, deliberate, and positioned himself between Adrian and the two executives. Not defensive, not aggressive, protective. He stared at Marcus first, eyes narrowing, then turned to Vivian and let out a low, guttural sound unlike the growls before. A warning, a claim, a declaration that these two human beings stood on the wrong side of truth. Adrian placed his hand on Draven's shoulder and felt it. The trembling intuition of a dog who sensed what logic had not yet revealed. Something in this room was poisoned, rotten, and Draven could smell it. Before anyone could address the reaction, the bureau chief entered. Chief Raymond Hale was a tall, broad man in his late 50s, with iron-gray hair and a neatly trimmed beard. His skin was weathered by decades of fieldwork, and his voice carried the firm authority of someone who had buried too many officers to tolerate incompetence. He greeted Adrian with a nod. Cross, I want you consulting on this case. You found the crash. Your dog might be our best lead. Marcus perked up. Consulting? Why not leading? He found the car. Give him the full case. Hale shot him a pointed look. This is a federal-level kidnapping. We follow procedure. Vivian added, what we need is results, not protocol. Hale ignored her. Adrian, debrief in my office in 10. Marcus stepped forward again, gripping Adrian's arm harder than necessary. His polished composure slipped for a moment, revealing something sharper underneath. Find her, he hissed softly. Do you understand? Find my wife. But his eyes betrayed something Adrian had seen too many times in combat zones. Not fear of loss, but fear of exposure. Draven growled again. Marcus stepped back. Vivian looked between them with a thin, knowing smile, then turned away, heels clicking sharply against the tile. Adrian didn't trust either of them. And Draven, who trusted almost every good soul he met, trusted them even less. As the room emptied, the screens continued flashing Elena's picture. Her warm smile now a haunting contrast to the cold calculations surrounding her. Adrian knelt beside Draven. Good boy, he murmured. Show me the liars, huh? Draven nudged his chin against Adrian's hand. One truth was already clear. Whoever took Elena knew everything about her life, and at least 2 people in this room didn't want her found too quickly. Adrian straightened, jaws set. Let's go, he whispered. Draven followed, silent as a shadow, but his eyes stayed fixed on the hallway where Marcus and Vivian had disappeared. He would not forget their scent. Neither would Adrian. If you believe that God sends warnings through instinct, through truth, and even through the loyalty of a dog, then like, comment, and subscribe so this story reaches more hearts. The forest swallowed sound, the deeper Adrian Cross and Draven pushed into it. The storm had eased, leaving behind a brittle stillness that felt almost wary, as if the trees themselves were listening. Draven, the 5-year-old sable German shepherd with amber eyes sharpened by instinct and memory, trotted ahead with his nose low to the snow. His body moved with purpose, muscles taut, ears flicking at the faintest whisper of wind. Whatever thread he had caught onto, it pulled him forward like gravity. Adrian followed close behind, boots crunching through crusted drifts. The 45-year-old former Navy SEAL scanned every shadow. His breath clouded in front of his blue-gray eyes, focused and intent, the way they had been countless nights in combat zones. But this was different. This wasn't a battlefield. This was a place where someone terrified had fought to stay alive. A notification buzzed on the tracker clipped to Adrian's vest. They were getting close, too close for coincidence. The cabin appeared as a dark shape between pine trunks, its roof sagging beneath layers of old snow. The wood was gray and weathered, but the padlock gleaming on the door was new. Clean metal, unscratched edges, the kind bought recently and installed with purpose, not neglect. Draven halted, his tail lowered, his breath steadied into slow, deep inhales. Adrian approached the lock first. "Someone used this place," he muttered. "Not long ago." He didn't need to say her name. The ring in his pocket reminded him with every step. Draven pawed at the door, then looked back at Adrian, eyes burning with a clarity that made the hairs rise on Adrian's neck. "All right, let's see." One hard kick splintered the doorframe. The cabin's stale darkness poured out like breath exhaled after holding too long. Inside, the air was painfully still. Dust floated in thin shafts of morning light, breaking through cracks in the boarded windows. But the stillness was a lie. A chair lay overturned, one leg broken. The rope that had once tied someone down still hung from a support beam. Frayed ends, knots tight, the fibers stretched to their limit. Tape strips clung to the wood-bearing strands of long, dark brown hair. Elena Hart's hair. Adrian stepped closer. The wall bore faint handprints, small, smeared upward, then dragged down as if someone had lifted themselves again and again, trying to make noise, to reach anything, to stay awake. His chest tightened. Draven approached the rope slowly. He sniffed the fibers, then rumbled a low sound, one of sorrow, not warning. He pressed his forehead gently against the deepest indentation where the rope had bitten into skin. Then he whined, placing one paw beside it and lowering his head as if honoring someone who had been tied there long enough to leave a memory in the wood. Adrian swallowed hard. "She fought," he whispered. "She didn't give up." He forced himself to be methodical, observe, assess, gather. On the floor, half crushed beneath a muddy boot print, lay a small, crumpled scrap of paper. He picked it up, smoothing it between gloved fingers. "If someone finds this, please don't trust." The rest had been torn clean off. His pulse kicked. Someone hadn't just silenced her, they had silenced her warning. He scanned the floor. Drag marks, a heel scuff, the faint outline of someone being forced out the door. He turned, and then he saw it. A thin shred of black fabric caught on a nail near the doorway. Not wool, not flannel, suit fabric, high-end. The kind hand-tailored executives wore, the kind Marcus Hart wore. Adrian clenched his jaw so hard the muscle along the side trembled. His mind raced, parsing possibilities, scenarios. but every trail led back to the one man who had cried only for the camera. Draven sniffed the scrap once. Then he bared his teeth, not in aggression, in recognition. As Adrian pocketed the fabric scrap, a sudden gust cut through the broken boards. Not strong, soft, almost hesitant. It rattled the hanging rope. It brushed across Adrian's ear like a whisper. It stirred dust into a slow, spiraling motion. And for just a heartbeat, Adrian felt something impossible. A faint echo of breath behind him, a sensation like someone standing too close, someone trying to speak. Draven froze. His head snapped toward the center of the room. His eyes, normally steady, shined with a trembling ache. He stepped forward and touched his nose gently to the wall where the handprints were darkest, as though reassuring someone unseen, someone who had suffered here, someone whose fear still clung to the wood. Adrian whispered, "I hear you. We're here." The cabin fell silent again. But something had changed inside Adrian, a conviction settling like a stone in water. Elena didn't just leave signs. She left hope, a thread for someone strong enough to follow. They swept the cabin thoroughly. No food, no water, no sign the abductors stayed long. The dust on the shelves hadn't been disturbed in years. This place wasn't chosen for convenience. It was chosen for isolation, a temporary pit stop before moving her somewhere else. Adrian knelt beneath the window. 2 sets of footprints heading east, one heavier, one dragging. Draven circled, nose tracing the air, tail rigid. Then he looked toward the woods, beyond the direction of the footprints. Adrian frowned. She was taken that way. Draven growled once, a disagreement. Then he continued to stare toward the opposite side of the clearing, ears pricked. Adrian followed his gaze. "What else are you picking up?" Draven whined softly, pawing twice at the snow. A scent, a presence, a memory. Something, or someone, had been here recently. Adrian's instincts flared. Someone watched her, not just handled her. Draven barked once, sharp. A second watcher, a second set of intentions. They weren't just hunting a kidnapper, they were hunting a conspiracy. Before they left, Adrian stood at the threshold, looking back at the destroyed room. The ropes, the handprints, the silence that felt too heavy to be abandonment. Draven sat beside him, gaze pinned to the corner where the rope hung. His ears lay flattened, not in fear, but in mourning. As they stepped outside, the wind slipped through the broken boards behind them. A faint tapping sound echoed once, like knuckles against wood. Adrian turned sharply, but nothing moved inside. Still, the feeling lingered, cold, hollow, pleading. He curled his fingers around Elena's ring, warm from his pocket. "She cried for help here," he whispered. "And no one heard her." Draven nudged his hand. "Until us." The dog's amber eyes held something ancient and determined. He would not fail her. Adrian would not fail her. Whatever lay ahead, they would follow it to the end. If you believe that God hears every cry, even the ones lost in the storm, then like, comment, and subscribe so more hearts can witness this journey. The investigation room was dim except for the glow of 2 monitors and the soft pulse of a space heater struggling against the mountain cold. Adrian Cross stood over the desk, elbows braced, blue-gray eyes tracking rows of financial numbers that made his jaw tighten 1 notch at a time. Draven lay at his feet, the 5-year-old sable German shepherd alert despite the quiet, his amber eyes shifting toward every new sound that the building made. The room smelled faintly of old paper, metal filing cabinets, and a wrongness neither man nor dog could name yet. Across the table sat Ethan Ward, a forensic accountant borrowed from the State Bureau. Ethan was in his late 30s, tall but slightly hunched from years spent over screens. His sandy brown hair was tied back loosely, and a rough stubble covered his jaw from the long overnight stretch. Despite his scholarly appearance, his eyes, hazel and sharp, held the weight of someone who had seen the fallout of financial crimes tear real lives apart. He pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "This isn't just creative accounting," he muttered. "This is industrial-scale laundering." Adrian exhaled slowly. Through her charity? Not just through it. Around it, under it, behind it. Ethan tapped a folder thick with printed spreadsheets. "Look here. Transfers disguised as medical supply grants to clinics that don't exist. Payments to research labs registered to shell corporations. And the signatures at the bottom." He slid one document toward Adrian. "Tell me what you see." Adrian studied the signature. Elena Hart. Elegant, looping, the same style he had seen on magazine covers. Then Ethan placed another document beside it. Same name, same general curve, but the pen pressure was inconsistent, the spacing unnatural, the slant mechanically perfect. "Forged," Adrian said quietly. Ethan nodded. Multiple times. For at least 2 years. Draven lifted his head, ears tilting at the subtle shift in Adrian's tone. He moved closer and rested his chin briefly on Adrian's knee, grounding him. Adrian's voice deepened. Marcus and Vivian used her foundation. Ethan swallowed. "Adrian, it's worse than that." He clicked a video file, grainy footage. A hallway in what looked like an underfunded clinic. Patients lay in beds, thin, frail, most older or clearly impoverished. Labeled charts hung at their feet, all marked as volunteers, though the confusion in their faces suggested otherwise. Nurses in mismatched scrubs injected something clear into IV lines. Adrian leaned closer. Ethan whispered, "Illegal trials. Experimental compounds. Done off the books. Done under the banner of Elena's philanthropy." One older woman in the video reached out toward the camera, shaking hands, hollow eyes, whispering something the microphone barely caught. "Please, stop." Adrian clenched his hand around the desk. He had seen suffering in war, but this was cruelty disguised as charity. A crime committed against the forgotten. "Cause of death on paperwork?" Adrian asked. Ethan's jaw flexed. "Complications, natural causes, random cardiac events, all lies." Draven whined softly, sensing the shift in the room, as if he too felt the weight of every signature Elena had supposedly placed on these files. He paced once, then returned to Adrian's side, leaning into him with silent insistence. That was when Ethan spoke again, voice lower. "There's something else, a recording recovered from Elena's personal drive." He clicked play, static, heavy breathing. Then Elena's voice, shaken yet resolute, the voice of a woman pushed past fear into righteous defiance. "You used my name," she said, "my foundation, my reputation, all to hide what you're doing to those patients. I will not let this continue. If you don't stop now, I will take everything to the prosecutor myself." A man's voice answered, smooth and cold. "Marcus, my love, you truly believe they would take your word over mine? A girl who grew up bouncing between foster homes versus the data verified by your CFO?" Another voice entered, crisp, elegant, feminine. "Vivian Cole." "Elena, you don't understand the scale of what you're interfering with. You'll ruin everything." "I don't care," Elena snapped back, "not if it saves even one person you hurt." A harsh sound followed, metal scraping, a struggle, a gasp. Then Marcus again, tone dripping with venom. "Tomorrow, all of this ends." Adrian's chest constricted. The night of the accident, the night she disappeared. The recording crackled. Elena's voice returned, weaker now. If anything happens to me, if I disappear, someone needs to know Marcus isn't the only one. Cut. Abrupt. Violent. Silence. Draven stood suddenly, hackles rising, a growl vibrating low in his throat. Adrian replayed the last seconds, searching for one more clue. The audio was faint, distorted. But Draven approached the speaker. He tilted his head. His ears twitched sharply. He barked once. Then he pawed at the desk, twice, staring directly at the corner of the waveform visualization where the audio had been cut. Ethan frowned. What's he reacting to? Adrian narrowed his eyes. Not the voices. Something behind them. They amplified the last millisecond. A faint click, not a door, not a phone, a heel. A woman's heel on polished tile. Vivian's preferred footwear. Custom stilettos with a distinct metallic tip. Draven barked again, softer this time, as if confirming a truth no human logic could deny. Adrian whispered, "He recognizes her. Her scent must have lingered in that cabin. She was there." The room fell silent. Someone had tried to erase Elena's last message. Someone whose footsteps Draven remembered. And that someone was sitting on the board of Elena's empire, pretending to mourn her. Adrian pressed his palms against the desk, breathing slowly, forcing clarity. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was a purge. Elena was going to expose them. Ethan nodded. And she would have destroyed Marcus financially, and Vivian professionally, billions of dollars, entire networks of illegal research. She was the only loose thread. And they cut her off, Adrian said. But not cleanly, Ethan added, pointing at the torn recording. Someone interrupted her. Someone erased this part, but not fast enough. Adrian pocketed the USB. This goes nowhere near the main system. No leaks, no chatter. We don't know how many people Marcus and Vivian own. Ethan straightened. Understood. Draven nudged Adrian's hand again, steady and warm, grounding him in a moment where rage threatened to rise past reason. His amber eyes were soft, yet burning with purpose. Adrian knelt, resting his forehead briefly against Draven's. "We're going to find her," he whispered. "We're going to bring her home." Draven's tail thumped once, slow, deliberate, like a vow. They gathered the files, the audio, the forged signatures. Everything pointed to the same truth. Elena Hart wasn't taken for ransom. She was taken to silence her. And the person she tried to warn the world about, the one whose name she never finished, Vivian Cole. As the lights in the investigation room flickered with the strain of the storm outside, Adrian tucked the evidence into an inner vest pocket. The weight of it settled over him like cold armor. Draven walked beside him, posture tall, eyes sharp, every step radiating resolve. They turned off the monitor. Darkness swallowed the room. Adrian whispered into it, "Elena, we hear you now." And in that quiet, Draven let out a soft, trembling sound, as if answering her plea across the miles of snow and fear. If you believe light always finds a way through darkness, please like, comment, and subscribe, so more hearts can witness the miracles faith can bring. The shipping yard loomed under a bruised gray sky, cranes frozen like skeletal giants over rows of metal containers stacked in cold, indifferent columns. Floodlights cut through the winter fog, throwing long shadows across the asphalt where tactical teams had already taken positions. Dozens of agents murmured into radios, scanning the perimeter with rifles ready. It should have felt like order, but the tension in the air hummed like a warning. Too rehearsed, too perfectly arranged, as if someone wanted every pair of eyes pointed in the wrong direction. Marcus Hart stood near the negotiation van, wearing a charcoal wool coat draped perfectly over his athletic frame. His hair, dark, carefully styled, remained flawless despite the biting wind. His handsome face was creased into a mask of grief so theatrical it bordered on artistry. In his gloved hands, he held a briefcase of ransom cash, knuckles pressed dramatically white. Beside him, Vivian Cole appeared like a blade brought to life. Tall, angular, her black suit unwrinkled, her raven hair gathered into a severe knot. Her gaze swept the scene with a kind of detached annoyance, as if the rescue of Elena Hart was yet another administrative inconvenience. Adrian Cross watched them both from the command vehicle. His breath fogged the window, but his eyes didn't leave Marcus. Not the slight stiffness in his shoulders, not the way his tears flowed on cue as soon as a camera lifted. Adrian's instincts prickled. Draven, however, was the first to move. The 5-year-old sable German shepherd erupted into frantic pacing, claws scraping the metal flooring. His ears pinned forward, body trembling, not with fear, but urgency. He pressed his nose hard against the opposite side of the door, the direction leading away from the staged ransom exchange. "Easy, boy," Adrian murmured. But Draven wasn't hearing him. The dog clawed the door twice, then threw his entire weight into it, barking toward the far end of the yard, where a cluster of freezer units sat abandoned in the dark. No agents were stationed there. No orders were given about that sector. It wasn't on any briefing map. Draven snarled, not aggressive, but insistent, then looked at Adrian with an expression he had only shown twice before. Once when locating a trapped child beneath rubble. Once when warning Adrian of an ambush overseas. A plea, a command, a truth only an animal could hear. Adrian didn't hesitate. He grabbed his gear. "We're moving." The radio crackled. "Cross, stay in position." The commander snapped. "This is the drop zone." "Draven disagrees," Adrian answered, already pushing out the door. "That dog isn't running this operation." "He's the only one here who doesn't lie," Adrian said, and cut the channel. Draven bolted across the yard, weaving through crates and steel beams. Adrian followed at full sprint, breath freezing in the air as they passed the last floodlight. Darkness swallowed them. Ahead, the cold storage warehouses loomed. Warehouse 17 standing isolated, its outer lights dead, its lock hanging crooked as if tampered with. Draven stiffened. His tail dropped. His nose lifted. A shudder rippled through his entire body. Adrian drew his weapon, heart pounding in his throat. "Show me," he whispered. Draven rammed the door. It snapped open with a metallic scream. Inside, icy air spilled out like a ghost exhaling. And in the beam of Adrian's flashlight, he saw her. Elena Hart sat bound to a steel chair, wrists lashed to the frame, ankles deep in frost. Her once elegant evening gown, emerald satin, was torn across the shoulder, streaked with dirt and dried blood. Her long chestnut hair clung to her cheeks, tangled and damp. Her lips were blue from the cold, her breath shallow, but her eyes, sharp, fiery, defiant, snapped toward them with a spark that refused to die. "Adrian," she breathed, voice raw. How did you find?" "Don't talk," he said, holstering his weapon to cut the ropes. "We'll get you out." Draven circled her, whining softly, nudging her knee as if apologizing for every second she had been alone. Elena gasped as the ropes loosened, rubbing her wrists against her chest to warm them. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. But the moment she regained her breath, she grabbed Adrian's sleeve. "Listen to me," she whispered urgently. "Don't trust them. Marcus, yes, but not only Marcus. There's someone else. Someone who's been beside me for 10 years, closer than family." "Who?" Adrian pressed. She opened her mouth. and a thin beam of red light slid across the far wall. A sniper's aim. Elena's pupils flared with terror. She lunged, not away, but toward Adrian, pulling him down with a desperate burst of strength born from pure instinct. The rifle cracked. The bullet sliced through the air exactly where Adrian's head had been. Draven exploded into motion, leaping toward the open doorway. Another gunshot. A flash of silver pain. A choked yelp. The second bullet ripped across Draven's flank. "No!" Elena screamed, voice cracking open. Draven staggered, hind leg buckling, but he forced himself up again, body trembling, teeth bared, placing himself between his humans and the invisible shooter hidden somewhere in the storm. Blood streaked across Draven's sable coat, staining the harness that bore his name. But his eyes never left Adrian's. There was no fear in them, only determination, an oath born long before words existed. The doorway darkened. A shadow moved. The sniper was repositioning. Draven growled once, deep, ancient, then stepped forward, even though each movement sent pain rippling through him. Elena clutched Adrian's arm. "He's going to die. Don't let him." But Draven didn't wait for permission. He limped toward the doorway, barking weakly, challenging the assassin with every shred of strength left in him. Adrian's heart punched against his ribs. Something inside him, the soldier, the protector, the man, fractured and reformed in a single breath. "Over my dead body," he whispered. Adrian grabbed Elena, pulling her behind a stack of crates as another shot shattered metal inches from their heads. Snow blew in through the broken door, swirling like a white curtain that revealed nothing and everything at once. "Draven!" Adrian shouted. The dog turned, blood dripping onto the frost, but he barked again. 3 short snaps, the signal he used when he found an escape route. He limped toward the back exit of the freezer unit, pausing only when Adrian didn't immediately follow. His amber eyes glowed with fierce insistence. "He wants us to move," Elena whispered, tears spilling. "He's still protecting us." Adrian lifted her into his arms, feeling how light she was, how close she'd come to disappearing from the world. Draven pushed forward, guiding them through the narrow walkway between giant ice lockers. Outside, the wind hit like knives. The storm swallowed sound, except for the faint echo of more gunfire erupting back at the container yard. Adrian's radio crackled violently. Cross, do you copy? Marcus Hart's been shot. Repeat, shot in the shoulder. Sniper, unknown location." More chaos, more shouting. Adrian switched it off. Elena clung to him, her voice trembling. "They're targeting everyone except who deserves it." Draven stumbled but kept moving, leaving a thin trail of blood on the snow. Elena stared at him, tears glistening in the cold. "Why?" she choked. "Why would he risk his life for me?" Adrian tightened his grip on her, following the dog who refused to quit. "Because you haven't given up your right to live," he said softly, "and he knows." Ahead, Draven's silhouette wavered, bleeding, limping, but leading. If you believe God sends guardians in fur and courage, please like, comment, and subscribe, so more hearts can witness his miracles. The hospital at night felt nothing like a place of healing. The fluorescent lights hummed softly, casting pale reflections across polished floors that smelled faintly of antiseptic and snow carried in on boots. In room 314, Elena Hart stirred awake, her eyelashes fluttering against the cold burn of memory. The moment her vision cleared, she saw him. Draven. The 5-year-old sable German shepherd lay pressed against the edge of her hospital bed, his head resting on her blanket despite the thick gauze wrapped across his wounded flank. His amber eyes were half-lidded, heavy with pain yet unwavering in vigilance. Every rise and fall of his chest came slow and deliberate, as though his body had given all it had, but his spirit refused to rest. Elena lifted her hand, shaking, fragile, and touched the top of his head. His ears twitched. He shifted his weight closer, a quiet groan escaping him. But he never broke eye contact. It was the way warriors looked at the people they swore to protect. Adrian stood near the doorway, arms crossed, his tall frame weary under the soft hospital lighting. His black t-shirt clung to the lean, sculpted lines of a man shaped by violence and purpose. The scar along his cheek caught the light, giving him the look of someone who had survived too many nights like this. "You're safe," he said softly. Elena's throat tightened. "He saved me again," she whispered, her gaze locked on Draven. "Why would he do that? He doesn't even know me." Adrian exhaled through his nose, slow, heavy. He walked closer, placing a hand gently on Draven's back. "There's only one time I heard him make the sound he made tonight," Adrian murmured. "He was lying beside his old partner, Mason." Elena looked up. "Mason was a SEAL," Adrian said. "My teammate, my friend. Draven belonged to him first. When Mason was killed in an ambush, Draven didn't move for hours. Just lay there with him, protecting him even after he was gone." Elena's breath broke. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. "No one has ever stayed beside me like that." Adrian didn't answer, not with words. The silence said enough. The door swung open suddenly. Marcus Hart stepped inside, wearing a sling on one arm and a perfectly arranged bandage on his shoulder. The handsome billionaire looked like a painting of remorse. Hair tousled, jaw trembling, eyes shimmering with sorrow. His voice cracked as he approached the bed. "Elena, my love, I'm so sorry. They forced me. I didn't know they would hurt you. I didn't know." Draven's ears shot up. His lip curled. A low, territorial growl vibrated through the room. Marcus froze mid-step, eyes darting to the dog. "What's wrong with him? Draven, it's me. I'm not—" Draven rose to his feet. Despite the wound in his side, despite the pain that shook his legs. He stepped between Marcus and Elena, teeth bared in a silent warning. "Stop," Adrian said coldly. "Don't go any closer." Marcus scoffed, but fear flickered in his eyes. "This is ridiculous. I'm her husband." "And he's protecting her," Adrian replied. "You should ask yourself why." Marcus swallowed hard. His face fell into darkness for a heartbeat before he forced another trembling sob, wiped his eyes, and backed out of the room. But Draven didn't stop growling until Marcus was gone. Hours later, the halls dimmed to near darkness. Machines beeped softly. Snow pressed against the windows like a silent audience. Elena dozed. Adrian sat beside her bed, exhaustion tugging at his features. Draven slept lightly at her side until his ears flicked. A footstep, soft, measured, wrong. Draven's eyes snapped open. He growled, not the warning growl from earlier, but a low, murderous sound that pulled Adrian instantly awake. "What is it, boy?" Before Adrian could stand, Draven lunged off the bed, ignoring the pain that split through his side. He ran straight toward the door. Adrian followed. Just as the doorknob turned, Marcus slipped inside again, but this time the remorse was gone. His face twisted with desperation and rage. His good hand clutched a small black pistol. His pupils were blown wide, fear, panic, and madness swirling inside them. Elena gasped. "Marcus, what are you doing?" He pointed the gun at her, breathing hard. "You don't understand. If you tell them what you found, we're both dead. You know who's behind all of it. You know what she is capable of." Adrian stepped forward. "Drop the weapon." "Shut up!" Marcus screamed, spit flying. "This isn't on me. I tried to save us. It's Vivian. Vivian pulled the strings. Vivian signed everything. Vivian made the deals. She's the one they trust." The name froze the air. Vivian Cole, the CFO, the woman Elena once called family. Adrian's jaw hardened. "So, you helped her?" Marcus's laugh cracked into madness. "You think I had a choice? You don't know her. You don't know what she—" Elena acted before he could finish. With a burst of adrenaline, she shoved her IV stand toward him. The pole slammed into his wrist. The gun jerked upward. The shot thundered into the ceiling, and Draven launched. The shepherd clamped his jaws around Marcus's gun arm, teeth sinking deep. Marcus screamed, flailing, trying to wrench free. Adrian lunged, tackling him to the floor. The gun skittered across the tiles. The door burst open. 2 officers stormed in, pinning Marcus down, cuffing him even as he kicked and snarled like a man losing his mind. From down the corridor, another figure appeared. Vivian Cole. She stood under the hallway light, her tall silhouette pristine in a tailored navy suit. No expression on her sculpted face. No fear. No urgency. Just calculation. Her dark eyes flicked over the chaos. The officers restraining Marcus, Draven bleeding anew, Elena trembling in the bed, Adrian rising like a storm. Then she smiled. Small, cold, dismissive. She turned and walked away, vanishing around the corner before anyone could reach her. Marcus thrashed as the officers dragged him down the hall. His hair fell over his forehead, sweat mixing with tears, the real kind now, born from terror instead of performance. "Elena," he screamed, "you think this is over? You don't understand Vivian? You don't understand what she wants. She's worse than me. She's worse than all of us." Elena stared at him, as if seeing the ghost of the man she once loved. Her heart splintered, not because she mourned him, but because she finally understood that she never knew him at all. She whispered, "What did I ever do to deserve any of this?" Adrian stepped beside her, touching her shoulder gently. "You told the truth," he said. "And some people fear the truth more than death." Draven limped back to her bed, rested his head on her blanket again, his blood staining the white sheets. Elena stroked his fur, tears falling silently onto his muzzle. He closed his eyes, but his tail thumped once, as if to say he would rise again if she needed him. If you believe that, even in the darkest nights, God sends protectors to stand between us and harm, please like, comment, and subscribe, so more souls can witness his miracles. The weeks that followed felt like a country holding its breath. Headlines screamed across every news network. Billionaire Marcus Hart indicted on federal charges, underground medical trials exposed, national manhunt for missing CFO Vivian Cole. The world had watched Elena Hart survive the impossible, and then watched her rise from the rubble of the life she once lived. Yet the storm was far from over. Marcus faced prosecution, but Vivian Cole, the ghost in tailored suits, evaporated in a single night, slipping past security cameras, wiping her digital trail clean. The FBI described her disappearance as highly coordinated, though Adrian Cross knew better. Vivian wasn't running. She was relocating, quietly, deliberately, like a shadow that learned to grow wings. Elena refused to hide from what she had survived. She left the marble halls and cold chandeliers of the Hart estate, leaving behind the last symbols of a marriage built on deception. Instead, she purchased a wide stretch of land outside the city, a place of rolling fields, soft hills, and a barn painted a hopeful shade of white. Her hands trembled the first time she stepped onto the raw soil, not from fear, but from the weight of doing something that finally belonged to her. It became the haven center for restoration, a refuge for children and women recovering from trauma. The staff, though small, were selected by Elena personally. Women with warm eyes and steady voices. Volunteers who understood brokenness without having to interrogate it. As the center grew, its heartbeat grew louder. On a quiet morning scattered with early winter frost, Adrian parked his truck near the entrance. Draven sat in the passenger seat, his sable coat gleaming after days of healing. The bandages had been removed from his side, replaced with a light patch of shaved fur and a faint scar. He carried it with the dignity of a knight who had earned his armor. Adrian stepped out first, his tall frame silhouetted against the golden morning. His black t-shirt hugged the broad lines of his shoulders, and his jaw was set in its natural state. Calm determination with a touch of protectiveness whenever he caught sight of Elena. Draven jumped down beside him, landing carefully on the healing leg before trotting forward. The sound of children's laughter drifted on the breeze. "Go on," Adrian murmured. "They've been waiting." Draven's ears perked. He broke into a gentle trot, his tail sweeping the air. A group of children, 6 of them, froze when they saw the large shepherd approach. They looked at him with wide eyes, some hesitant, some hopeful, some carrying the invisible fractures of lives wounded too soon. Then Draven lowered his head, his body language softening into an invitation. A little boy with curly blonde hair stepped forward first. Barely 6, thin shoulders wrapped in a puffy navy jacket. His name was Noah, one of the children Elena had rescued from an abusive home. Noah reached out, with trembling fingers, and touched Draven's fur. Draven pressed his forehead gently to the boy's chest. Noah giggled, a sound that broke something open in every adult watching. Soon the other children surrounded him, wrapping arms around Draven's neck, climbing onto his back, tugging playfully at his thick coat. Draven let them. When one girl's smile faltered and her lower lip quivered with memories she couldn't voice, Draven moved to her side, laying his head on her knee until she finally breathed again. Elena stood a few steps away, watching. She wore a soft cream sweater that hugged her slender frame, her chestnut hair tied back loosely, framing a face no longer polished by wealth, but softened by purpose. Her hazel eyes glowed with something she once believed she would never feel again: peace. Adrian joined her. "You built something remarkable," he said quietly. "I built something truthful," she replied. Their gazes drifted back to Draven, who now lay on the grass while 3 children pretended he was a living pillow. The sunlight caught the golden strands in his fur as he soaked in their joy like medicine. Elena exhaled. "There were nights," she whispered, "when I wondered why it was me. Why Draven found me in that freezing dark instead of anyone else." "You're alive because you fought," Adrian said. "No." Elena shook her head gently. "I'm alive because something in my fear called him, not with words, something deeper." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I think people who've been hurting for too long start screaming silently. And maybe, just maybe, the right soul hears it." Adrian's voice lowered. "Sometimes the animals hear it first. They hear what humans forget to listen for." Draven lifted his head, as if sensing his name in the wind. His tail brushed against the grass in a slow, content sweep. A soft breeze rustled through the fields. Snowflakes, tiny, hesitant, began to drift from the sky. Draven stood and walked toward Adrian and Elena, his pace deliberate. He sat between them, pressed his head against Elena's leg, but turned his gaze to Adrian with a look that held 100 unspoken truths. A choice, a promise, a future. Elena knelt and placed her hand on his cheek. Draven closed his eyes, leaning into her touch as though he had been waiting a lifetime to feel that kind of gentleness again. Adrian watched, his expression a quiet surrender to something deeper than duty. He reached down, resting his palm on Draven's neck. The shepherd's tail swished, touching both their boots. A family forming at the speed of healing. A bond knitted in survival, pain, and something divine. The sun dipped lower, painting the fields in amber. Children were ushered inside for cocoa, leaving the three of them alone beneath the shimmering sky. Elena sat at the base of an old oak tree, drawing her knees close. "Marcus destroyed my marriage," she whispered. "But Vivian, she destroyed my trust in myself." Her voice shook. I didn't see who she really was. "You trusted because you had a good heart," Adrian said. He leaned his back against the tree trunk beside her. One betrayal doesn't change that. It just proves how much the world needs people who trust. She looked at him, not with fragility now, but with gratitude. "And what about you?" she asked softly. "Draven saved me, but you saved my will to live." Adrian didn't answer. Instead, he placed his hand gently over hers. Draven lay at their feet, curling into a protective arc around both their legs, his amber eyes glowing with quiet contentment. The sky deepened into violet. Elena whispered, "Do you think he'll stay?" Adrian smiled faintly. "I think he already has." Draven stretched out, resting his head on Elena's lap while his tail tapped against Adrian's boot, choosing them both. The first true snow of the season began to fall. Draven lifted his head, ears flicking at some distant sound only he could hear. But when he looked back at Adrian and Elena, his eyes were peaceful, a guardian at rest, an angel in fur, waiting for whatever storm would rise next. If you believe God sends protectors in unexpected forms, sometimes with 4 legs and a heart made of courage, please like, comment, and subscribe so others can witness his miracles. Sometimes the greatest miracles do not arrive with thunder or light. They come quietly, through the courage of a wounded heart, the loyalty of a dog who refuses to give up, or the strength to take one more step when the world has already taken too much. Stories like this remind us that God places protectors in our path in ways we seldom expect, and that even in the darkest hours, His hand is never far from those who call out in silence. If this story touched you, please share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and help these messages of hope and resilience reach someone who may need them today. May the Lord bless you, guard your family, and lead you toward your own quiet miracle.